On today's Minute of the Apes, we got to burn time because we got like an hour to do 2 more episodes.
But Hasline would tell us that it's a big... Wait, no. I was going to say it's like a big burrito, but isn't that Back to the Future?
I don't know.
Hello and welcome to Minute of the Apes, the daily podcast where we break down every minute of the Planet of the Apes movies, 1 minute at a time. I'm Todd. It's Richard. It's Sean. It's
Hey-o.
Thursday. Let's go. We are at minute 24. Sean, tell us what's going on.
All right, minute 24. We're going to start with Dickson saying to answer what will be simple questions, and ends with Dickson saying, what may astonish you?
It's a Dickson Bookend. I want to hear that minute. Let's listen to that minute of Escape from the Apes.
Are you...
With simple answers to what will certainly be simple questions.
And if the questions become less simple,
Be yourself.
Your better self, Sarah. Please.
They're ready, sir.
All right, it's time.
what do they think we are, gorillas?
I'm sorry. That's it, just a seat. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Louis Dickson, and I am the animal psychiatrist who has been in charge of these 2 apes since they came to the Los Angeles Zoo. My associate, Dr. Stephanie Branton, and I are ready to answer your questions. What may astonish you is...
As of minute 24, we have a planet's worth of humans plus 2 living apes and 1 dead ape.
So, in our Dickson Bookend minute, stop it. I'm going to, forever when I need Richard to laugh, I'm going to talk about the Dickson Bookend. I do believe that is in sex manuals out there.
I'm sure it is.
I'm pretty sure it is. All right, so
Cornelius starts off this minute just throwing straight shade at Zira, doesn't he? Just be your better self.
Okay. So that immediately made me think, and I'll go so far as before my wife's about to walk in here. We had a tiff yesterday. We had one of those moments where we're yelling at each other, and it's always about what you're not to me. But every couple, I think, in the world has their roles where they fit. Mm-hmm. But apparently his is to remind Zira to be calm and not fly off the handle. Be your better self.
Because she's an emotional woman, that's why.
That's actually, that's a good way of phrasing it.
Yeah.
Well, everybody's home, so hi, the dogs are here too.
Doggy.
Jake, shh.
So he says, well, it'll certainly be simple questions. And Zira's like, and if the questions become less simple, and I'm trying to imagine, she's suggesting that what if we have to reveal things about our origins and who we are and
like
things
we operate
like that,
on humans
and
in
what
the
do
future, and we kill humans in the future.
We get into that a little bit soon.
Yeah.
But it's interesting for her to kind of ask what he wants her not to go into. Dr. Dickson and Dr. Branton, can we assume at this point have had conversations about where Zira and Cornelius are from, what they did, where they are? That's where I would want to think, but honestly, it doesn't feel that way. And what the questions become less simple, saying, hey, how deep do you want me to talk about where we came from, what we're doing?
Do we want to tell them what happened to Taylor and Brent whenever we saw them last?
And Lewis just says, be yourself, suggesting that he doesn't know all that information. But then that's when Cornelius jumps in and says, be your better self. And I'm like, what is she going to, what is he, like, there's like multiple layers of what's being suggested.
Right.
One is that she's saying, do you want me to keep our history basic so they don't understand? Mm-hmm. Lewis is saying, be yourself, as if he's saying, I don't know that information. And then Cornelius is coming back saying, hey, don't fly off the handle like you're apt to.
Well, because, and think about it this way. I mean, that's not a new attitude to him, because whenever we saw them in the, why am I blanking on the gorilla's name from the last movie?
Ursus?
Ursus, yeah. When Ursus was talking to all the apes in that outside pavilion, Cornelius was having to tell Zira to chill out there, too.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not a new attitude for him to have to her.
No, and this is, and sadly, outside of the walk and talks too, where we saw the reporters talking to the people, though, this is nothing new really that's given in this film. I also find the entire staging of this whole minute a bit boring, just because it's just sitting at a desk. It's just talking. It's just, instead of somebody, if you were doing this on somebody's premiere on Broadway, they might be looking out the curtain to see the audience that's waiting on them. So you might give Stevie something to do. Maybe Stevie's opened the door and looked, oh my God, it's a full house. Oh my God, I hate that reporter. She's there.
The peek outside would have been a great idea. We do have the moment where they stand up and we realize they're chained together.
Yeah.
So we do have a brief moment here where they stand, they're chained together, and now we get the sense that this could be a hostile moment for them.
True.
And I almost wish that had kind of happened just a second or two earlier, so that she feels maybe what do we not talk about? What are we supposed to talk about and not talk about? Because clearly,
why isn't that the first thing we see? Why isn't the first thing we see is the chains of them together, and one of them saying, "Do we have to be shackled to one another?"
They stand up to greet Dr. Lewis or Dr. Dixon when he walks in, and that's when you get that moment. And that's when she's like, "Well, how deep were we supposed to talk about?"
Yeah, I mean, the way they act, it's almost like they forgot they had the shackles on.
That's very true. There are so many deceptions in this where it's hiding information so they can
reveal it to
give us an explosive revelation at some point.
But the people that know the information are also acting like they don't know the information.
But well, so kind of looking at it just in terms of the script, the moment where he says, "You be your better self, Zira, please," and they stand and have the chain moment. She comes back and says, "What do they think we are? Gorillas?" And it comes back to that kind of thing, like she's now becoming who she says not to be.
She's not being her better self. Yeah,
she's not being her better self because she's flying. She's a very, very, very intelligent chimpanzee psychiatrist, and there are moments where she falls back on this kind of what am I trying to say?
It's like a specious attitude.
She falls back on these specious moments that just seem unbecoming of somebody who should be somewhat elevated.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just because you're a doctor doesn't mean you can't be a racist.
Or, it doesn't mean that you also can't have moments of giving in to simple humanity instead of what your education provides you.
Your baser needs.
But Zira has always been the one that's been a voice of reason throughout. I think the three of us have agreed that for us, many times she has really been the central character that at least gave our perspective on what we're supposed to bring from everything that's occurring. And for her to suddenly lose that, it's a betrayal of character. It's a betrayal of the story, and it feels wrong. It really does.
What do they think we are, gorillas? We're now in a situation where we know that she's stressed.
That's a good point. She is stressed.
So we have a gentleman walking in basically saying they're ready for them, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, real quick, before we get to that, Zira gave Dickson a look at one point that looked like they were just going to make out.
I think she has a human fetish.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that is what the Dickson
bookend. The Dickson bookend is
her Taylor and Dickson. That's the Dickson bookend.
But she leans into him when she says, "What do you think we are, gorillas?" And she has her hands up to him, and it's almost like she's about to go in and get a hug.
Yeah,
it really does look like she's about to go in to get a hug. And then the gentleman calls to get them to come in. He's in a suit with some type of badge or something on, and they are kind of ushered out with Cornelius and Zira leading, with Dr. Dickson kind of slightly behind them, and then Dr. Branton getting up from the desk and walking behind them as well. I thought it was interesting that he kind of pushes them out the door first, as opposed to taking the lead. What's really interesting about this kind of auditorium assembly room that they have a desk at the front that's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 personnel sitting at them. There are various military leaders. There's a clergyman. There are some people in suits. They do not have the traditional desk that you would imagine seating at. They just have two simple little chairs in the front.
Right.
And an auditorium behind them of what we assume are attendees and people.
That's true. When you have a Senate committee of some sort, usually the person's sitting behind a desk with a microphone.
With a table.
And even at the same time, I remember the Godfather Part 2, Michael testifies at a Senate committee. So they would have known that would have been where
And they would have also had, I'm pointing at a screen that nobody sees, but they would have had press sitting right up here taking pictures in front of the desk. Because at this point, basically everybody is just going to see the back of two chimps' heads.
Yeah. Right. And there's only two chairs, which means we assume that you see two chairs. Does this mean Dickson and Branton are going to sit down and the apes are just going to stand there awkwardly? Does this mean the two apes are going to sit down and Dickson and Branton are going to be active participants in what's going on? I mean, it's just the two chairs is a little deceptive. Now we know what happens. Do they do this moment where they go and actually sit down?
I just want to at least point out that of all the times that Sean has called for monkeys flinging poo, this is the moment that I actually would have loved to have seen it the most, where they just crap and start flinging the poo.
So Zuri and Cornelius actually sit down, and they actually hold hands. Mm-hmm. Dr. Dickson then begins to talk, and Dr. Branton and Stevie is on kind of the other side of Cornelius. They're both kind of flanked as if they're about to talk, and that's what we end with. We bookend with Dr. Dickson giving kind of again reiterating stuff that we already know to an audience. There's a lot of repetitive moments.
I want to thank you because I don't know that I've ever felt a friendship deeper and more binding the moment that you actually referenced my bookend joke. So thank you so much. Yeah, we've said it in so many minutes where things just set things up for subsequent minutes. I don't want to destroy this film, and I know that we're kind of nitpicking this middle section right here of the early minutes where it feels a little odd the way they put together, how there's a lot of reiteration of information that we should already have, because I do think this, even with this, is far superior to the previous film.
Well, we would have expected Dr. Dickson to actually get up and say
Make
these things,
of some sort,
make these statements, but when you juxtapose that with the president having to explain everything a few minutes earlier and everything else, it then becomes repetitive. It's not that this moment is necessarily repetitive. It's not just that this moment is unnecessary. It's just when you stack it back to back with multiple scenes where they're having to re-explain what's going on,
right,
it's a little overwhelming.
But oddly, though, even with it just being a repetitive nature of the same information, this film still has a propulsion where you're you want to see where it's going. You're following it. It isn't that. I know this. Why are you telling me this again? You're following it.
You're now moving it down. We now actually have a situation where our two aponauts
can finally give new information or something?
Are now about to sit in front of a commission, and we're about to hear the things that we maybe already know or don't know about them to the public. I mean, this is a big setup for a big reveal to the American audience, to the public, to the world audience.
Is this the moment when the audience looks and does go, oh my God, this is a mirror of Taylor speaking in the first film? We know it's coming. You knew in the first film that Taylor was eventually going to speak to them, and it would probably be because they had talked numerous times about how humans were stupid and whatnot. Is this the moment when this audience is saying it's delicious to them because you're about to give me a little bit of that?
Right. There was one note that I mentioned. I can't remember if we mentioned it when we were setting up for this episode. So, or they say, actually, no, we're talking about Dr. Dickson, Dr. Branton. They say Lewis and Stevie. So he says, my name is Lewis Dickson. He doesn't say doctor. He says, my name is Lewis Dickson. And I'm the animal psychiatrist who's been in charge of these two apes since they came to the Los Angeles Zoo. The line is, my assistant, Dr. Stephanie Branson, was changed to associate.
Oh, so she got called doctor.
But he says, my associate, Dr. Stephanie Branton, in the dialogue.
Mm-hmm. It was assistant in the script? Okay.
Dane had assistant. And I don't know if that was a conscious choice, but as actors talk, they sometimes will modify words here and there. So I have no idea if it was intentionally changed to associate as opposed to assistant, or if he just kind of rolled over that word and just said associate.
Well, she's also married to the powers that be, so I'm sure she was like, excuse me, I'm a doctor.
I'm nobody's assistant.
I'm an associate. I'm not just an assistant. I'm an assistant doctor.
I don't work for you.
But they did change that piece of dialogue.
Actors are going to be keen to that, and I think that when we saw Cornelius playing with the pens and whatnot like that, those are actors saying those things to the director and pointing it out.
Yeah.
And that's where film is incredibly collaborative. A writer's going to write it, the director's going to say what they want to see, here are the themes I'm trying, but the actor's still going to come in and say, this is what my character would be doing, and that's what you want from these moments. Unfortunately, in the previous film, we didn't have enough of that. So we've got a ton of it working here. We've got them all together. We're teasing the fact that the world is truly about to know. These aren't just apes. These aren't just apes with really good hair. These aren't just apes with really good clothes, well manufactured,
tailored,
maintained nails. They can talk.
Can they sing?
All right, so that's at least teasing the last minute for this week. Do you guys have anything else?
No, that's it for
No,
me.
that's all I got.
Okay, so I will
Checking
say
my nail beds.
I know.
You know what?
Yeah, I think I'm looking good.
Both of you need to actually go get a manicure. And when you do, could you get that shiny, I think it's number 83 brown is what they call it.
Oh, so
and
for the
so that you
nails?
have the shiny nails and that we can look just like them when we podcast.
Okay.